Hello, you're watching UATV News in English. It is noon here in Kiev, Ukraine. I'm Oles Garjuk, and let's see what the latest updates are this hour. Ukraine's fight to free itself from Russia's grip continues. This includes the independence of its Orthodox Church. Autocephaly of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church may soon be decided at a synod to be held next week. The prospect of the Kiev Metropolitan receiving Thomas in this story.
Bartholomew and exarchs of the Ecumenical Patriarch are completing their three-week mission here in Ukraine, and one of their final meetings is with the head of parliament.
We are really hoping that we will get a decision on the Thomas by the end of this year. We only have a certain period of time left to prepare and bring notice about the final steps to the Patriarch that will be taken towards the establishment of relations and the unification of the Ukrainian Orthodox churches.
The exarchs are preparing a report to be heard at the nearest synod of the Ecumenical Patriarchate, which will be held October 9th through the 11th. The Ministry of Culture of Ukraine is hoping the historic document will be approved there.
I very much hope that these basic principled decisions will be made about the provision of Thomas, about the opening of the permanent representation of the Ecumenical Patriarchate in Ukraine, and the roadmap for Ukrainian churches, believers, clergy and hierarchs on what they must do, not only at the level of declarations, but also in practical terms to get a Thomas. In addition, at this Holy Synod, the Ecumenical Patriarch is to declare the invalidity of the anathema that was imposed on me by the Moscow Patriarch in 1997.
Providing the Thomas to Ukraine is only a matter of time. The Ecumenical Patriarch announced its final intention to grant the Ukrainian church autocephaly at the end of August by sending his representatives to Kyiv.
The Kiev Metropolitan was created by the Ecumenical Patriarch of Byzantium not once but twice in history, that is, he created and then recreated it. Therefore, the Ecumenical Patriarch has every reason to consider his church maternal in relation to Kiev.
The Moscow Patriarchate, of course, is trying to obstruct the plans for autocephaly in every way possible. In its statement, it called the actions of Constantinople illegal. In response, the Ecumenical Patriarchate published archival evidence. Constantinople has never and will never surrender the Kyiv Metropolitan to the canonical territory of the Moscow Patriarchate.
A letter of thanks to Ukrainians for their support. This is what Roman Sushchenko sent from the detention center in which he is being held in Moscow. The Ukr-informed journalist who was falsely charged with espionage recently was allowed to see his relatives. This comes just before he has been transferred to a penal colony. At a presentation here in Kiev, his daughter Yulia read from one of the last letters she received from him.
I'm extremely grateful for your solidarity, help, and participation. I've never doubted in your sincereness and passion of your collective actions. I hope you will continue to support me, my family, and justice.
Oleg Sentsov, a Ukrainian political prisoner, has ended his hunger strike. According to a letter he wrote to his lawyer, Sentsov was warned Russian authorities would undertake drastic measures to prevent further deterioration of his health. UATV brings you details now.
145 days of struggle, 20 kilos of weight lost, his body collapsing, withering away, and yet his goal is not reached. This, in short, is the message in Oleg Sentsov's letter. He thanked everyone who has supported him and asked for their forgiveness that he cannot continue his hunger strike.
In connection with the critical state of my health, as well as the pathological changes that have begun in my internal organs, I have been scheduled for forced feeding in the very near future. My choice is no longer taken into account. Allegedly, I am no longer able to adequately assess the level of threat to my health.
According to his lawyer, Dmitry Dindze, Sentsov will file on October 6th a declaration confirming he is stopping his hunger strike. Russian Federal Penitentiary Service has left him almost no choice.
He did not want to withdraw from the hunger strike. This is a necessary measure so that Russian authorities would not paint him as a mentally ill person or vegetable chained to a bed. He now does not know whether or not he will be able to come out of the hunger strike, because he was told that irreversible changes in his internal organs already began.
The head of the prison service hastily announced that they had already consulted the best dietitians from Moscow. They claim they will help Oleg recover from the hunger strike without complications.
The menu includes all necessary food rations, which will allow Oleg Sentsov, without complications, to get out of the long state of rejection of good nutrition.
The Ukrainian director has not eaten solid food for 145 days. Ombudswoman Lyudmila Denisova is demanding that independent doctors supervise Oleg's recovery.
I urge the Russian Federation to save the life of a Ukrainian. I demand that he be provided with independent medics who will conduct a full medical examination. We can bring these doctors from Ukraine or Europe.
Former political prisoner and dissident and now head of the Psychiatrist Association of Ukraine, Semyon Gluzman, announced a hunger strike twice while he was imprisoned in the 70s. Each of those hunger strikes lasted 4 months. He says that withdrawing from a hunger strike is extremely painful because by that point the organism is exhausted. He remembers his own experiences.
I didn't only feel weakness. Once I felt a strange sensation, the approach of death. And at the same time, my legs, the bones in my legs, began to ache. I had a feeling that the bone marrow in my legs was frozen. I understood that this was utter exhaustion.
Recently, the European Court of Human Rights accepted Sentsov's lawsuit for consideration. In it, he announced that Russia used torture against him, as well as infringed on his right for freedom and security. According to lawyers, it will be the first time ever a personal case will be connected to an international incident. That is, Sentsov's case will be heard together with the case of the annexation of Crimea. The court gave Russia until January 16, 2019, to prepare a response.
However, the consideration of cases in court continues up to 6 and up to 8 years. We hope that the decision of this case will be faster. But until that moment, Russia should understand that the situation is under the control of the European Court.
Oleg Sentsov, a Crimean film director, was sentenced to 20 years in a penal colony on a fabricated charge of preparing terrorist attacks. He did not plead guilty.
Next, the latest from the front line in eastern Ukraine. 2 Ukrainian servicemen have been wounded over the past day. Russian hybrid forces fired at Ukrainian military positions 19 times. Occupiers used weapons that are banned under the Minsk agreements. Oleksiy Trihub, a Ukrainian military spokesperson, gave us more updates from the front line in a phone call with UATV. Since midnight, Russian hybrid forces shelled Ukrainian military positions located not far from Shirokine and Vodyane, using grenade launchers, large-caliber machine guns and small arms 3 times. No casualties were reported among Ukrainian servicemen. What would you do in an emergency situation? Well, answering this question and acting it out in a right way is the reason for a Family Day event happening in central Kyiv today. Adults and children are practicing for themselves, extinguishing fire, providing first aid, and trying other real-life activities. And for those who really love fire engines, there is even an exhibition of modern and rare firefighting equipment. And that's all we have for you this hour. For more information, you can always check our official website, uatv.ua. Also, feel free to follow us on social media. Just search for UATV English on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And I'll be back to this studio with the latest news at 2 o'clock Kyiv time. Make sure not to miss the next broadcast. See you then.